After a less than thrilling quarter-final stage, we now at the business end of the 2012 African Cup of Nations. Welcome to MTN Football webcast. I'm Suma Zbubo. Alongside me is Dwayne Duloka. Dwayne, let's look at the first semi-final. Zambia, very convincing in their quarter-final stage. Ghana, not so much. How do you see this one going on?
Well, certainly Zambia were most impressive in their quarter-final, no doubt about that. But they were up against a Sudanese outfit. Take nothing away from Sudan. They were plucky. They deserved their quarter-final place in the end. But ultimately, it was always going to be a stretch too far. It was as if they had reached their pinnacle, their peak, by qualifying for the knockout stages of this tournament. So in terms of trying to find the guts they needed in that final match of theirs against Zambia, it was really always going to be a long shot at best. And Zambia ended up romping through quite convincingly, 3-0 in the end. A solid performance from the Zambians, whose attack has been nothing short of actually quite beautiful. You've watched this attack game in and game out from the Zambians, and every time you watch them going forward, you get a sense that the side is putting together some beautiful football. They're playing magnificent, attacking, running football. And that's what we love to see, not just a counter-attacking game, not just a side that can stun opposition in the middle of the park. And I think that's where Zambia could really prove key. The only team that really pushed, or the only teams that have pushed Ghana so far, are the teams that have come out all guns blazing. Guinea certainly did it, and there was definitely no let up from the Tunisians when it came to trying to attack Ghana in their respective quarter-final. But I think Ghana showed that they don't quite have the ability to step up to that third, fourth gear when they need to. Against the Tunisians, they were outplayed. Yes, the game was a bit smothered by the typical North African style of play, but Tunisia were game for it at times, certainly ran out. Ultimately, though, it was an ill-tempered affair. The Tunisians got carried away, the elbow in the face of Dede Ayew, which saw Ayman Abdenour red-carded for the match. Not nice scenes that concluded the encounter. Ghana, though, victorious in the end after a horrid mistake from Ayman Matluti. You take that away, though, and Tunisia could easily have gone through to the semi-final in a penalty shootout. So in terms of that, you got to weigh it up and say that maybe Ghana were a little lucky to get through. Ultimately, they're the class act. They're the four-time champions. Zambia, not uncharted territory for them. They've been here before. They've played in two finals. Unfortunately, though, maybe their class against Ghana is going to be tested to its maximum.
Let's turn our attention to the other semi-final, the West African derby between Mali and Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, Didier Drogba, Yaya Toure finally came to the party in this tournament. Fantastic goals from the both of them. Mali, on the other hand, had to struggle their way through. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, well, Mali needing the lottery of a penalty shootout to actually make the final four in this game, and they were far from convincing in the match against Gabon. In fact, Gabon dominated the match for 84-odd minutes, and 6 minutes from time, Cheick Diabate finding that equalising goal, which eventually took the match to extra time, and that subsequently went to penalties. And the irony, of course, for poor Gabon is that the hero of their group round, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, goes and misses the penalty. But certainly for Mali, far from convincing in their performance against a side that was really up for it. Co-host always going to be, but they've got an even tougher encounter awaiting them now with Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire are a side that have not conceded a goal in this tournament. They've looked defensively completely obstinate. They have looked really good on attack. Although they could have scored more goals easily, in fact, they haven't. They've held back. They've done what they've needed to do. Although there was a sense of drive from Didier Drogba in the last game, after he missed the penalty or had it saved quite brilliantly by Danilo, you saw the emotion from Drogba. It was driving him after the constant taunts from the home crowd. You don't taunt Didier Drogba. He'll show you why it's a bad idea. And he did. He punished him completely with two magnificent goals in that game. And if he gets into that sort of mood, Didier Drogba can finish off any side in the world. The real battle, though, is going to be between Yaya Toure and Seydou Keita. They were the two African players fighting for a starting berth at Barcelona, which eventually swung Seydou Keita's way. And ultimately, Yaya Toure leaving the club after that. There's still a little bit of niggle between those two, and I think of all the battles, that is going to be by far the most fascinating encounter in the middle of the park. Ultimately, though, Mali, not uncharted territory, 5 semi-finals for them, but for Côte d'Ivoire, they are champions, or have been champions once before, and I think you've got to say favourites to progress.
Well, we find ourselves in a situation where there's two teams that have won it and two teams that haven't won it. Do you see a fairy tale scenario taking place in this African Cup of Nations with one of the two teams that haven't won it taking it? Or do you see the traditional powerhouses coming through and lifting this tournament?
Well, everybody loves a good underdog story, and you want to see Zambia making the final as a Southern African. I think there are many people from Southern Africa that want to see Zambia into the final. But you got to be realistic about the football. If they make it, they have achieved beyond any expectation, because Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire were widely expected to stroll into this final, and true to form, they are 2 of the last 4. And I still believe that is going to be the final. But wouldn't it be lovely to see a Zambia-Mali final, so that we can have a first-time winner of this tournament? There's a sentimental part of me that would like to see that happening. Ultimately, I don't believe it's going to be the case. Football should be the winner, and I think Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire is going to be the final.